Wanted to ask a bit about Brennan Othmann's camp. What have you made from him in the first 2 preseason games, and where are you at kind of with this game?
So I think there's been some good, and there's been some areas where I think there's opportunity for growth and improvement. Otter, I think his effort has been terrific. I think he's trying to use his speed. We've tried to define for him, a path for, that we think makes the most sense for him to carve a rollout on this team, and it's going to be through conscientious play. And so we're looking for that positional play, attention to detail, tracking back into our end zone, making good reads, things of that nature. And so, his intentions have been really good. His effort has been great. And I think he's getting better with each game that he plays, just as far as, understanding what the expectations are. So, he'll get another opportunity tonight.
Looks like you also have a pretty tall fourth line potentially tonight. Are you familiar with ever having this much height available to you in terms of forwards? Rampy and Edstrom.
No, that might be the biggest line that I've ever coached. That's a big line.
Yeah. What can that size bring?
Well, I just think size is hard to play against. They're big, they're long, they're rangy, they lean on people. They can hang on to pucks and protect pucks. I think it's just hard to play against by nature of their length and their physical stature. And so we've been really encouraged by Rems's game. You guys have asked me about that. Eddie the same way. Those guys are similar in the sense that they're, the type of game that they bring, just their size and their north-south game, ability to help us create momentum, control territory, hang on to pucks down low in the offensive zone. And when they have an opportunity to chip in offensively, it's a huge bonus for us. I think they've done a real good job just as far as hanging on to pucks in the offensive zone. And Rems has done a real good job at going to the net and just getting to the blue paint and making the sight lines for the goalie difficult. He's a lot to handle at the net front, once again because of his size and his strength. And I've been encouraged with his stick skills. I think he's shown an ability to to skate onto loose pucks, and have the ability to execute a next play or bang in an opportunity for a rebound, whatever it may be. I think that's what those guys potentially could bring to the group.
You had Sidney Crosby as a captain for years, and I was wondering if you've given JT any advice about what Crosby kind of did as a captain, and what are the similarities and differences between the two of them as leaders?
So JT and I have had some conversations around, just kind of defining what we think the expectations are for our captain, and how our captain and our coaching staff, or our head coach in particular, him and I, can build a relationship. In a lot of ways, the captain is the conduit between the coaching staff and the players, and that relationship's really important for the team. And and I shared the experience that I had with Sid, and obviously built a good relationship with him over the years when we were there together. And I intend to do the same thing with JT here. My advice to JT though is, to be himself and not try to be someone else. I think authenticity is an important element of being a good leader, and leadership can manifest itself a number of different ways. And I think the most important thing is what resonates with people is when you're true to yourself and you're real. And that's what we want him to be. We want him to be himself. And that's what I said to him is, no one expects you, to be Sidney Crosby or Mark Messier. We want you to be JT Miller. And we'll help you through the process as far as some of the challenges that come along the way. But we want him to stay true to himself, focus on his game, and we'll build a relationship through this journey, and we'll go through it together. And that's really the conversation that I've had with him.
And do you have any idea of how you want to split the workload between Igor and Jonathan Quick, just to get the most out of him?
During the season?
During the season.
Yes. You want specifics?
I mean, if you don't want to share, it's okay.
I'll take specifics if you want to share.
Well, if I wanted to share specifics, I would have given them to you.
That's probably fair.
No, we have an idea of what the workload should be in order to set up both guys for success. Here's what I'll tell you. In today's game, it's hard to go wire to wire as one goaltender. You know, a second goalie is required. And when you think about it in a lot of ways, if that second goalie, that backup goalie plays too little, and there's a huge gap between the starts that he gets, does it really set that guy up for success? And so I look at it as a win-win for both scenarios. You know, we think in Shesty and Quickie, we've got two really solid guys, obviously. And so I think they can be complementary of one another. And we have a game plan. I've spoken with the goaltending coaches, Malks, Benoit Allaire when Ben was here, about this very thing, about workload and how we're going to approach it. But you know, we're going to try to set both guys up for success, because ultimately that sets the Rangers up for success. But you know, in today's game, you know, there aren't too many guys that are able to go wire to wire, and then when the games get real meaningful, they're at their very best. There's very few. And so you know, I think for those reasons it makes sense to make sure we have an eye on the workload and we manage it appropriately.
You've mentioned for this team to be at its best, Mika needs to be at his best. Are there specific things, I guess, you've communicated to him that you need to see for him to be at his best?
Yeah. You know, I think we want. You know, when I having coached against Mika for a lot of years, you know, I've seen his best and how dangerous he can be offensively and how diligent he can be defensively. And you know, we want him to be a complete player. You know, we want him to lead us at both ends of the rink, both with and without the puck. You know, I think offensively, he obviously has one of the better shots in the league. He can really one-time a puck. He's got a great wrist shot. He's got a deceptive release. You know, I think he can get inside a little bit more, get inside the dots, go to the net, bang in some you know, rebounds or things of that nature. We call them blue paint goals. You know, goals that take place within 2 feet of the blue paint. You know, I think if any player that's going to score a significant amount of the goals in the league, some of them have to come from there. You know, they're not all going to be highlight reel goals that show up on ESPN. And so we've got to be willing to, you know, to go to the hard areas in order to pay the price for winning. And we're asking all of our guys to do that, but Mika in particular, I think, is very capable of scoring those type of goals. We know he's going to get some goals off the rush. He's going to one-time some goals. You know, we're going to challenge him to get inside a little bit and create offense different ways.
He's talked with us a number of times about how he's a thinker. Like he thinks a lot, and sometimes he needs to think less when he's playing. How do you kind of approach players like that it's not like a care issue, but just sometimes needing to slow their own brain down?
Yeah, I think you know, in my experience with the cerebral type players, sometimes coaches have to help them get out of their own way so that they can act on their instincts and be at their best. You know, the game happens so fast out there. Players are at their very best when they're in an instinctive mindset. And if you're thinking too much, you know, you're going to paralyze yourself with thoughts. In the windows of opportunity, they open and close too quickly. And so, you know, we're going to try in certain instances to give him less information, to try to give him an opportunity to get in that instinctive mindset.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Mike.